Hi everyone, welcome back for another video. Today I'm gonna discuss something that's unique to only Slavic culture. In the whole world, Julienne is known as a style of cut. Julienne is when something, usually like pepper or onions or carrots, is cut in a small, thin strips. But in Slavic culture, Julienne is a special dish. Here, take a look. This is what it is. If you would like to make Julienne, as in the Russian dish, then here's what you'll need. The core of Julienne is mushrooms. So you'll need about 700 grams of mushrooms. You'll need 2 full onions, this is 4 halves. Then about 2 or 3 tablespoons of sour cream, 2 or 3 tablespoons of flour, about 3 tablespoons of oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower, whatever you have. And also very important, you can take either milk if you don't like very fatty stuff, but preferably you go ahead and use cream, 18% or 33% or whatever you have. Choose what you like. Then on top of that, to make it nice and decorated, we're gonna use some hard cheese. This is gonna be needed to sprinkle on top, and when we bake our chowder in the oven, it's gonna give it, a very nice flavor, first of all, because it's cheese. And then on top of that, it's gonna make it look way nicer, because baked stuff is great stuff. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our onions and mushrooms, and we're gonna chop the onions very finely and cut the mushrooms into quarters. I'll show you. Let's grab a cutting board. So we're gonna take our onions and cut them into very small pieces. The smaller the onion, the better, because you don't want it. This is not like a French onion soup where you sort of have to feel the texture and be able to pick out the onions. In this chowder, onions are supposed to be given, the thickness to the sauce and sort of like making it not so soupy. This is important. Therefore, you want to cut it into smaller pieces. After you've chopped your onions finely, you want to go on to mushrooms. So here's how we cut the mushrooms. The stalk comes off. You can leave it as one piece. Let's assume that that's the 5th quarter. And then you're just gonna cut your mushroom in half and then into another half like that. One more time. The stalk comes off, and then the hat goes into quarters. Like I said, the word Julienne in the entire world means to cut something in strips. So something like thin strips, like this. But one of the legends says that this Russian recipe, Russian Julienne, it has its name because originally the mushrooms were cut as a Julienne style. But I don't think this is true, because I've done some research and apparently this recipe is ancient. So like not ancient, but it's quite old. It's at least like 5 to 10 centuries old. And it was always cut into quarters like this. So I guess that's not the reason why this recipe is called Julienne. Another guess why it could be called Julienne, or not a guess, but it seems like a real answer to this question, and it's quite actually simple. The answer is that people just tend to implement words from other languages into their language. So Julienne, I think it's quite obvious, it's a French word. And Russia, or not the Russia, the Slavs in general, used to be Russian Empire a long time ago, and then broke down into many countries. Russia is one of them nowadays. It had a history with France. Like, for example, during the Napoleonic times, French was almost like an international language, like English is nowadays. And quite a fair amount of people in the Russian Empire at the time knew how to speak French. So most likely the word Julienne, it was heard by the people that made this recipe. They heard this word from those high-end people, those who actually spoke French, because not everybody spoke French in the Russian Empire. It was only the people of a high status. So to summarize, the most reasonable answer to the question why this recipe has a name Julienne is that people just straight up liked the word, and so they borrowed it for their recipe. But this recipe is actually quite famous in what's now referred to as post-Soviet Union. In the rest of the world, however, this is simply known as like a mushroom chowder. Now look, the mushrooms are cut into quarters, like I said. If you also have some dry forest mushrooms or like white mushrooms, go ahead and use them. This is only gonna like enhance the mushroom flavor in the recipe. If you don't, then it's fine. This is why we cut the mushrooms coarsely, so that the larger they are, the more juice there is, so the more concentrated the taste is gonna be. So now, here I got a pot into which we're gonna dump our flour, and we're gonna make sure the pot is dry. It's gotta be dry, because if not, then the flour will go clunky. And then here, we're gonna sort of fry, not on very high heat, like medium heat, something like 6, We're gonna color the flour. We're gonna make it golden brown. At the same time, in the pan, we're gonna add our oil. This one, the pan can go on high heat. If you cannot work with 2 pans simultaneously, then go ahead and take them one thing at a time. You probably want to start with the sauce, but if not, or if you can work with 2 pans simultaneously, then let's carry on. So into our wok here I got, but it doesn't matter, you can take any pan. We're gonna put our onions. You want to constantly stir your flour, because if not, then it will, burn. This recipe, it consists of 2 parts to it. One is the sauce, which is made from cream and the flour and sour cream. And then the second part is like the filling. It's going to be onions and mushrooms. So this is why we got 2 pans separately, but in the end we're gonna mix them, yet you still want to prepare them separately. For our sauce, it's best if you use a whisk, because you're gonna have to whisk the cream into the flour. If you don't whisk it, it might go into clumps, which is not nice, but I mean, we're not in a restaurant, who cares? You can still eat it like this. For your second part, the filling, the stuffing, or whatever, however you call it, go ahead and use this, whatever this is called, or pork, or whatever you're happy with. It doesn't really matter. So my flour, it started to brown a little bit. So it's time for the rest of the ingredients to go in. I'm gonna put the sour cream as well as the cream. the sour cream as well as the cream, they both go in at the same time. And now you wanna use your whisk to make sure that the flour is well mixed. My onions have started to brown, so it's time for the mushrooms to go in. And don't forget to mix, always mix, because the things can burn. If the sauce seems a bit too thick, like mine is, then you can always just add some water, or if you have extra cream or milk, whatever you're using, it's fine. And don't forget to season things, because, you know, I didn't mention at the start that you'll need salt and pepper, but I hope it's quite obvious to you people that you have to season things. So, and again, season to your taste. I can't tell you how much, because everybody likes it differently. Now look, after the water or the juice has evaporated from the mushrooms, in the end we get something like this. The sauce is, it's quite soupy, but like this is not really a sauce. We're gonna pour it into the second part. And then as for the second part, the water has evaporated and everything is starting to fry now. So once the food in here, the mushrooms and the onions, reach the coloring and level of fryiness that you would like, then that's it. Mine is, and I'm gonna mix the two parts. Like I said, this stuff is like a chowder, so you can really eat it in the end like this, as we got it. But a characteristic of Slavic cuisine is that they tend to bake a lot of things. So, if this is fine with you, what we got here, then you can go ahead and eat it as is. But, here you see my oven is beeping. You want to set it to 350 or 370, doesn't really matter. Degrees Fahrenheit, or about 170, 180 degrees Celsius. Again, doesn't really matter. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make it like the Slavs used to make it. We're gonna pour it into dishes, sprinkle some cheese on top, and then we're gonna send it into an oven for about 20 minutes for the cheese to melt. And that's how they used to eat. You take a cup, whatever you want to use that won't blast in the oven, and then you just pour it in here. And now you just sprinkle some cheese on top, and then we stick it into the oven for 20 minutes. So here, look guys, again, this is the recipe of Russian dish called Julienne. You can bake for about 20 minutes, but then again, if you like your cheese a bit more browned, then leave it for a longer time. I like mine like this because then it's you know, not burnt and it's not like, you know, gooey. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Again, this was a recipe of Russian dish Julienne, which is something unique to only Russian or Slavic culture. I hope you guys will subscribe if you like this video. If you like the video, press the like buttons and don't forget to leave a comment below. And again, thank you for watching. Enjoy!